I want to talk about the word monetization. You know, guys, it's not a bad word. And monetization of species is not an evil phrase. What's missing out of that phrase is one word: sustainability. Monetization of species sustainably. And it's an interesting thought when you talk about sharks. That's what I do for a living. I've been in tourism for 19 years. And for the last 10, I've been dealing with sharks. We do the big charismatic megafauna species. Perhaps you've seen them on Shark Week. The white sharks, tiger sharks, bull sharks, hammerheads. In our world, those are known as instant tourism species. You can have those off your coast, whale sharks, for example, and you can roll up instant tourism in about 2 weeks. Now, this will amaze some when you find out that the global shark diving industry is actually a $300 million a year industry. That's stats coming out of Ocean Conservancy. But I don't really think they did their numbers, because if you go to the Bahamas and you talk to them there, they'll tell you that their shark diving industry is worth $78 million a year. Now, these are folks from all over the world that want to go see charismatic megafauna. So let's talk sharks. The instant tourism species can really be a change to local economies. I think the paradigm right now that we're looking at, the one that bothers me the most, is the NGO that points the finger at the coastal fishermen. And we're going to talk about coastal fisheries right now, and says, you know, what you're doing here is wrong. Stop fishing. And leaves the coastal fishermen with really nothing to trade off on. Now, what I do, we do consulting now to governments. I actually just was recently in Tonga talking to them. I was in Hawaii last week, and I'm off to the Maldives in a couple of weeks from now. What we do is talk to governments about how I can talk to a fisherman that's making maybe $1 a pound on shark meat, and I can show them how to make $20 to $40 to $60 to $90 per diver showing them sharks. And there's been some great successes over the last little while. A little island called Isla Tiburon, maybe you guys know it. It's also known as Hobosh. It's in Mexico off of Cancun. 6 years ago, that was a major, major Mexican shark fishery. Local pangueros going out, harvesting as many sharks as they could get. They were getting $1 a pound for the meat. I've talked to the locals, and their fishery was tanking. About 6 years ago, an American tourist went out there and saw 200 whale sharks in the bay and just about fell over. Now today, it's a $3.5 million industry, whale shark tourism. And most of the fishermen, not all of them, but most of them are now taking tourists out to see them at $60 a pop. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about monetization of species, and it's done all over the world. But my company does a lot of talking to governments about how they can ramp it up. It's a no-brainer. We're actually at a point right now where technology has gotten us to this fabulous point where we can literally ramp up a website. I can get the local panguero's phone to ring in 2 weeks with a fat German tourist on the other end that's got $60 in his pocket to give it to him. Now, that's all we need to do. It's that simple. And when we're talking about coastal populations, that's where a lot of the sharks are getting whacked right now. So there are some obligations here. You know, local governments can step in and start to move their fishermen or wean them off of this consumptive use and into shark tourism. And it's growing. So where does this go? I mean, where would be the final frontier of shark diving, if you will? And in our world, it's actually culminated with this, Project Blue. And right now I'm calling it Project Blue Bahamas. The lawyers have said I can show you this, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So right now we've got a major problem with hotels around the world, and they are the major coastal owners of property worldwide. And most hotels and resorts look at the shoreline as their obligation. They keep the sand nice. They've got the Millennium swimming pool and a nice golf course, and that's the end of it. They don't actually look at the ocean as another tourism source. And in a lot of cases, what's happened is that the local reefs have been destroyed by the resort itself. You know, the phosphates coming off of the golf course kill the reef. So what we propose to them is that with a very, very simple way of looking at this, out-of-the-box thinking, something new, we can actually recreate that reef just a little ways off and have your charismatic tourism or your charismatic megafauna tourism, and everybody wins. Here's what I've seen. I've actually seen in Honduras, once the local fishermen get tourism under their belt, once they start taking tourists there and they start making $60, and for them, ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of money. Once they start making that kind of money, they really look at those animals as their bread and butter, not just fins, not just whole pieces, but actually their sustainable use. In Honduras, I've actually seen a shark diving operator, a young guy, jump into a fisherman's boat and punch him right in the nose because he's trying to take the sharks out of an area that 5 years ago he was also taking the sharks out of. So they get invested quickly. And again, what our speech is to other governments is, we're not telling you not to do it. We're just saying we got a better idea and there's more money in it for you. And shark tourism, the final thing I'll say about that, has really come to a point where its hard and fast protocols have taught us how to interact with these species safely. So Project Blue, this would be the grand frontier, if you will. You know, it's all about building structure where structure was never before in white sand areas. There's new technology that's actually come out where you can take coral aggregate, dead coral aggregate from miles inland, mix it with concrete, and actually mix it with a chemical substance, I'll tell you all about that in a second, that repels algae and attracts coral polyps. It's fascinating stuff. And it's actually made out of the habanero pepper. So we would be creating these structures offshore for touristic endeavors that would actually create reef, that would actually create sharks, and now you've got underwater tourism. It allows resorts and developments to green up, and it also gives them an opportunity to engage the local population who would normally be fishing sharks to use these sites. It's also a media machine, and we talked about the fact that media typically doesn't like to cover this stuff unless there's something in it for them. We like the idea of this underwater technology attracting media. We also like the fact with these charismatic megafauna, you can bring, well, I don't know, the ABC Morning Today Show guys and have some fun with them with these animals. But at the same time, use this site as a holistic site to also have shark research and also have shark conservation messages happening. Now, if you build these things, they will come, and that is fish life. And people start getting invested in the fish life, and the tourism starts to build. And these structures can be anything. I mean, the wildest imagination you can have. Now, we're not talking about destroying reef that's already there. We're talking about dead areas. And for most resorts out there, there's a lot of dead areas off the coast that nothing is actually happening in there. And in partnership with research, in partnership with careful study, these things can be placed. Now, that's just an idea of what might be. There's also really, you know, for the tourist endeavor, which I always look at, there's fun submarine technology out there that can bring other people to this site as well. So we can open it up to a broader range of people that want to interact with the deep sea world. And of course, this technology, Sylvia probably knows this guy. Yeah, this technology exists today. It's neat technology where you actually fly through the water like an F-15. So the Project Blue site, that's basically the idea, the final frontier of shark diving. And what it's all designed to do here is provide a way for local economies with the help of government and maybe with the help of regional players like resort developers to get the local population off shark fishing and invested in something that is sustainable for everybody, not just the shark fishermen, but also the resort developers and the tourists themselves. You may ask yourself, you know, is this a pie in the sky thing? No, we're actually building that right now, and it'll be online in 2012. It's a 10-acre site. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to revolutionize the impact that we have with animals on a sustainable level. A lot of people look at this as a heretical thought. You know, my God, you're just, you're taking from the oceans. But I think that if we add to that the knowledge base with research and have researchers have access to the site and these animals, and we add to that the positive impact of teaching thousands and thousands of divers about these animals, then we all win. The fact of the matter is, we have all the tools at our disposal right now to turn a lot of the consumptive use into sustainable use. All the tools are there, but they're all not in a kit. We just got to start rolling it up, putting it in a kit, and then handing it off to people to make it happen. So that's the stump speech.